We are finally getting some real peeks into Den of Wolves gameplay with the recently shown pre-alpha footage, and there's already a few things that are making me look forward to its release already. But let's start with what we already knew. The visual setting of Den of Wolves definitely looks mighty promising already, and really makes me want to see more. The grim look of the Technothreat environment immediately transmits you into the feel of being in an actual dystopian world, in which corporations can be more powerful than even governments. And while there's moments where the animations of the characters look choppy in there, I'm not convinced that that will be a thing once the game actually goes into early access. Now that we've actually seen some of the gameplay footage, we have also been able to spot some of the more interesting things of the environment. For example, the revolving doors that we can see the characters run through multiple times, which hopefully are not just there to stop you, but actually pose a threat. This could lead to us having multiple different things to work around, which is a thing that many people expected later down the line in GTFO, but sadly never happened. There's also obvious things such as the breakable holes in walls, or the vaults that we have to break into. One thing I'm personally quite happy to see is that we've finally gotten the full entrance cutscene to a level. With it not just being a plain entrance, this opens up the possibilities of a variety of different ways that we can go into the heists that could fit the dystopian setting of Den of Wolves. According to interviews, before you actually drop into the level, you get a planning section where you can choose how you approach the level and what route you want to take. This does have me concerned in a way, in that this might limit the creativity or the ability to adapt to a bad situation in the actual run. But I'm hopeful that 10 Chambers figures out a way to have it work so that random players cannot just grief you by choosing their own path, while still allowing you to adapt to the moment and whatever situation you're dealing with, in case something seriously goes wrong. Throughout the footage, we've been able to spot a few different gun types, such as several automatic weapons, a semi-automatic main and sidearm, as well as a shotgun. We've also been able to see that the characters do wield melee weapons such as a knife. Whether those are going to be a main part for stealth gameplay is still to be seen. Among the gun types we've seen, the scopes all seem quite minimalistic, which in my opinion is a good thing, especially if I look at the scopes we had in GTFO. A lot of them were oversaturated or had too much going on. So just having some nice minimalistic but futuristic sights is definitely going to be a welcome change. As of right now, the guns seem like they're very fun to handle and shoot, and although some sound bits seem to be taken over from GTFO, this does not diminish that using them sounds incredibly satisfying already. As the developers have said, Den of Wolves is again gonna be a game where there's not gonna be any preset roles, but you decide what you want to take and build your role yourself. Regarding customization options, I'm definitely hoping for more than GTFO had, where you simply chose the weapon that was pre-made for you, but I'm also hoping that we do not have the overcomplicated build your own gun type of customization. Simply being able to choose your scope and some other mild parameters should definitely be included though. Regarding movement and shooting, we've only really seen one scene of somebody slight shooting, but other than that, there's not much actual movement and shooting, so it stands to question whether they allow you to shoot while jumping or while sprinting even, which I personally doubt considering the prior standpoints of that in GTFO. Another thing that might be back from the prior title is that you can be aim punched, though whether this is an actual aim punch or just a slight spasm of a player is unclear as of the recording of this video. One thing that definitely has me concerned as of right now is the potential lack of enemy variety. We've only really seen humanoid enemies using guns, which obviously this is just the pre-alpha phase and we've only been able to see one level. But if it stays like this, that would definitely hamper my excitement. Enemies with hit-scan guns are typically the most common type of enemy you'll encounter in these type of games, but having variants is key. The people working at 10 Chambers definitely do have experience with other type of attacks though, And since we've seen other designs in their trailers, like massive burly robots, and even some teasers with their motion capture and interviews, I'm staying hopeful for now. There's also been one specific encounter which could be clarified as a mini-boss, taking a lot more hits before it goes down. With the priorly mentioned point of different enemy archetypes, this could be very interesting in what they put into the game. And who knows what kinds of thing 10 Chambers is cooking, be it massive robotic designs or maybe bioengineered humans. Other things we've seen for the enemies is that they seem to not be dead immediately, often being hunched over and near death after taking a certain amount of damage. The level design seems to be done quite well, be it for shooting or the yet to be shown stealth options. Having multiple directions where enemies can come from with a ton of options for cover as well as often very three-dimensional areas that you fight in definitely demands high level of attention from groups of players, but makes it all the more interesting. Instead of having to deal with straight, narrow corridors or just open plains, you actually have to think about where enemies might be coming from and how to deal with them in every single moment. Whether they decide to go for the same stealth approach that GTFO had, or the one that Payday used before, or something in between, is something that we likely will have to wait for until it's released in early access. There's been a lot of questions regarding the difficulty of Dinner Wolves and how it will match up compared to their prior title GTFO. According to some interviews, they are aiming for it to be a very challenging co-op experience as well. While not as nightmarishly difficult as GTFO, it's supposed to still ramp up to quite a high level. The difference being that they want it to be a lot more approachable when you start out and not be quite as punishing. And at least we can be sure that they know what's hard. Some of the other more interesting things that stand out to me are the very typical heist hacking gear or drill, which sadly still seem to not work correctly and have to be restarted or repaired a few times every run. Futuristic much. One thing that really stands out during the pre-alpha showcase are the deployable shields, which are used in multiple different situations, being able to give you cover from enemy gunfire, or to give you time to reposition quickly into a more stable position. Aside from them, there also seem to be some kind of explosives that you can throw onto walls, but we sadly haven't seen too much of those. Other things we've seen are the typical heist carrying bags, but also actually carrying heavy objects, such as the one we've seen in one of the trailers. Something that's coming back from GTFO as well are team scans, and while they're probably used a lot more scarcely, they still seem to be put in for the same reason as before, which is to crowd people together for the probably most prominent and interesting feature we've seen, the dive.
Diving in 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
From what we've been told by the devs, diving completely freezes the outside world until you come back. For the dives themselves, we've not been given that much information, as most things are probably still bound to change. They apparently are supposed to be a break from the combat events, while still giving you something interesting to do, with the one that we can see being parkour related in a way that reminds me personally of the distortion world from Pokemon. Another potential use for the dives that's been hinted at is them including some kind of puzzle. There's even been talks about being able to dive within a dive. Personally, I'm most interested in how these dives work in the actual gameplay, and whether they will drag you out of the experience or whether they work fluidly. The last thing I want to bring up is something that we've only seen slight snippets of, which is the potential HUD of Dinner Wolves. Obvious reminder, Dinner Wolves is still in pre-alpha, so this is very likely bound to change. But for now, the HUD that we can see in their recent series trailer is very minimalistic, showing us only their few gun slots, as well as their teammates and the objective marker. The one thing that really stands out to me here though, is the big shield bar on top. I don't believe that this shield bar is for the manually deployable shields, but instead it might indicate that each of our characters has their own personal shield that maybe regenerates upon not taking damage for a while. Honestly, the recent gameplay footage they've given us definitely has got me quite hyped. Having a sci-fi heist game definitely opens up a lot of different objectives compared to, for example, Payday. Whether Dinner Wolves comes out this year in 2025 or not, I'm definitely looking forward to it and excited to try it for myself. And I hope after watching this, you are too.
Divided enemies line up one by one like a real foot soldier. Stand my ground when I stare them down, cause they can't control us.